India, mother of democracy, or a glorious cultural heritage of democratic spirit. India, a continuous civilization, enduring and emerging nation, inclusive and participative democracy, democratic institutions, and democratic values resonate and radiate India's endearing, inspirational influence in diplomatic terms, soft power और भारतीय राजनय का मधुर पहलू across the globe. Democracy, a form of governance, meaning decision making based on people's participation. Ultimately, democracy is a way of life, respect for alternative views, opinion, and opposition. The context of this insightful lecture is Indian Council of Historical Research published a book, India, the Mother of Democracy, Essence of Ingrained Democratic Values in India from the dawn of civilization. Historical publications must be underpinned or based with reliable sources, sound reason, and impartial analysis as much as possible. Historic examples that exemplify democratic traditions of our glorious cultural heritage. Example, Vaishali, capital of Vajik Mahajanpad, one of the first examples of a republic that held elections around 6th century before Common Era, predates Athenian democracy, example of city-state democracy. In a European context, person of highest wisdom, spirit of equality, revolutionary social reformer, architect of Constitution of India, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar compared Buddhist monks sung with Indian Parliament. He described it as body having rules for motion, resolutions, quorum, voting, and counting of votes. Mother of Indian Constitution, Baba Sahib reasoned that Buddha adopted the existing political system prevalent at that time around 6th century before Common Era. Gansang's decision-making traditions, Lichui and Kaling's societal norms of decision-making, Uttarmerur inscription, the first archaeological source of decision making that included democratic elements. It is like a mini constitution that provides instructions about conduct and procedure of decision making and electing its members. Uttarmerur inscription established peaceful coexistence of monarchy and autonomous Gram Sabhas with democratic traditions. It is an example of complementary, cohesive coexistence. Bhakti movement is tied towards just, egalitarian, cohesive, and compassionate social order. It irrigated roots of democratic philosophy. Bhakti movement, India's largest cultural movement, embraced entire India. In this way, Bhakti movement, in this way, created foundational base for Indian national movement or India's freedom struggle. Munda and Orav, tribals, community, and consensus-based way of decision-making in central India and in peninsular India's southern part or southern eastern part, Kaktiya of Warangal supported or in any way or in other way advanced democratic traditions of village also well known in the pages of our history. In 12th century, his spiritual social reformer Lord Basveshwar and his Anubhav Mandapam were free debates and discussions encouraged even before historic Magna Carta of 1215. Sikh faith's decision-making traditions. Ibadat Khana of Akbar were free flow of ideas and interactions in a cultural and spiritual sphere aimed at bring about complete peace through socio-cultural syncretic or synthesizing initiatives. Know your glorious past in context of democratic values or spirit. In Mahabharat, the war of righteousness, Lord Sri Krishna put forth philosophy, ideas about moral duties that ought to be adhered in war of righteousness. Even Lord put forth enlightened philosophical ideas before disciple, but not imposed on him and create and or provided an opportunity. Do if you think it ought to be done. There is a criticism that how we can trace democratic values in Gansang's way of decision making that can be equated with oligarchy systems in present era. There is truth in this criticism, or in other words, we can say this criticism is not deprived from truth, but ignorance and deprivation of context can distort our conclusion. We should not impose our present on our past in its accomplishments and ilices. In ancient context, societal norms of Gansangs and above mentioned examples were path breaking and praiseworthy. Why? Democracy evolved, not emerged from an event. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar declared with pride that ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, inspired from his spiritual guide, preacher of compassion, Lord Buddha, not from French State Revolution, and liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, constituents of democracy into sense. From glorious cultural heritage of spiritual democracy built on Rigvedic, seminal, generous heritage of Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti means truth is one, but says scholars interpret it in diverse way, in alternative way. The generous foundation created optimum condition to blossom diverse ideas. Then philosophy of Ekantvad and Ekantvad and its translation into way of life or practice as Yadvad inculcated respect for alternative ideas, diverse opinions. Father of cultural nationalism, Swami Vivekananda's historic speech on September 11, 1893 at the World's Parliament of Religions at Chicago in the United States of America, where he introduced equality of all religions in their internal, essential, or philosophical dimensions. Means each and every seed have potential to transform into a large or vast tree. All rivers from whenever they origin embrace ocean as their destination. All these, all these seminal or generous ideas reflects spirit of democracy, seed elements of democracy. But in modern era, Indian national movement that led whole wave of anti-colonial struggle tried to inculcate or establish democratic traditions, institutions as a way of life, way of decision making. Culmination of Indian national movements, struggle for liberation from colonial exploitation, oppression, discrimination, its realization of nations, self-determination, our freedom, was founding moment, regarded as third republican revolution after American War of Independence and French State Revolution. United States of America, where poor whites, American natives, African black slaves, women deprived from political participation, and more and after more than 2 centuries, they get adult universal adult franchise. Even French State Revolution that heralded a new era, revolutionized nationalism or nationalism led politics, deprived its own citizens from participation in political decision making on the discriminatory ground of passive citizens. Even mother of parliamentary democracy, England embraced equality in electoral politics for women in 1918 after more than 2 centuries of its glorious revolution of 1688. India, where Indian national movement created democratic foundation and our founding guardians collective leadership ensure universal adult franchise in single strike as Indian national movement under father of nation Mahatma Gandhi aimed at transform ordinary people into decision maker of their own destiny in their own way. Dr. Ambedkar's struggle for self-respect and equality for each and every individual resulted into inclusive democracy. For an example, our constitution empowered or ensured participation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and even for Anglo Indians in representative democracy with constitutional provisions. Indian national movement's essence or constitution transformed democratic spirit that was nurtured by Indian national movement or freedom struggle into democratic spirit with structure based on institutions, certain norms and standards. Association for Democratic Reforms and its reports on increasing number of criminals in politics, criminalization of politics and politicization of criminals, increasing money and muscle power in elections, polarization of caste and communal ground are grave threats for free, fair, ethical, and inclusive elections. As political parties fuel for parliamentarian democracy, and their political campaign are essential to socialize constitutional morality, democratic values that are not written but from us, or sorry, but expected from us ought to be adhere. Our founding guardians enriched us with glorious democratic heritage of democratic values and institutions. It is our moral responsibility and constitutional morality reflected in our fundamental duties, Part 4, Article 51A, to preserve, protect, and propagate our composite cultural heritage, constitutional morality, democratic institutions, inculcating democratic spirit with examples in our generation and in next. Democracy based on trust and trust built on credibility of institutions and our manner or behavior with our fellow citizens, their alternative ideas, views. Hashtag my parliament, my pride should be translated, transformed, or founding guardians' dreams with which they adopted and nurtured with extraordinary, exemplary courage, extraordinary bravery, and unprecedented sacrifice. Parliamentarian form of governance, emphasizing day-to-day responsibility and accountability to sovereign people of India rather than presidential forum built on or emphasized on stability even in polarized Cold War global order and India's partition on colonialism sponsored and communal elements nurtured communalism.